Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. Please write down your name and student number as a form of attendance. So I will record this session and also the chat, so I can write down your attendance in the SIAC NG. Meanwhile, I'd like to get a show of hand. Raise your hand in the reactions if you have watched the YouTube video by Group 5. Raise your hand in the using reaction. Okay, I see 2 people who raised their hand. How about the remaining 14? So, okay, so the way I structured the class is to minimize, to optimize the Zoom session, so we can go straight to the Q&A. But so I was hoping that you would have already watched the group presentation, which is only around 20 minutes. So if you have not, you can watch it right now while we do the Q&A. So so the session is being recorded, and I will take note of the Q&A. So the Q&A will be part of the assessment for group 5, but also for individual student. I will take note of your participation in the Q&A session. So okay, so I'll just start sharing my screen first. Okay. Okay, so I have a lot of slides. I won't present everything because most of it have been covered by your friends in the YouTube video. So basically today we are going to discuss about critical literature review and also theoretical framework. And for today's agenda, a third of our scheduled time should be about Q&A. So I will give opportunity for you who want to ask question. You can ask question directly. So you may either using turn on your speaker only, or if you want, you can turn on both the speaker and the camera to ask question. But if you prefer, you can even write down your question in the chat box. So if you don't want to speak aloud, perhaps you may ask your question in the chat box, but preferably ask the question directly, and I will give the opportunity for the group 5 to answer the question. I think group 5 we have I think we already have Winarif. Winarif, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The members of group 5, other than Winarif, also I think Kim Sevin, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. And who else? I think there's wait a second. Okay, group 5 and Dewa Putu, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So now I will give the opportunity for the other student from the other 7 group who wants to ask question. Please do ask question. So and group 5 will answer the question. If you want to ask question, please raise your hand, and I will. What is it?
Sir, can I ask?
Okay, yes, you may ask.
Okay, my question is, what is the ideal time to conduct a literature review? For instance, we have to prepare several months to determine the topic, reviewing the journal, and so on.
Okay,
Thank you.
so from Santira Ayusa. Okay, okay. Group 5, please answer the question by Santira. Or do you need Santira to repeat the question if you like? Okay. I see. So, okay. Group 5, which one of you wants to answer? I think Sabine.
Yeah, I will answer.
Okay.
So I'm not really like so sure about it, but in my opinion, doing a literature review involves finding relevant publication, like such as books and journal articles, critically analyzing them and explaining what you found. So literature review is like a process, so it is ideal to conduct from the start, like when you find a topic, when you search for a topic too.
Okay. Okay, so according to Sabine, it's better for the researcher to do the literature review at the start, at the beginning of the research project. Is it limited only at the start of the research project?
Oh no, it's like literature review cover all the process happen
Okay.
in the research. So I think I cannot really say that like you have to do the literature review like from the first or the middle or the last. It just happen like every part of the research.
Okay.
In my opinion, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Santira, does that answer? Does Sabine's answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sabine.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is there any other question? If you like, you can write down your question in the chat, and I will read them aloud for group 5 to answer.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I think in the video when Narif explained about the different types of hypothesis, I was wondering, it was a little bit unclear to me the difference between a traditional hypothesis and the directional and non-directional hypothesis.
Okay, so about hypothesis. So Sabrina asked about hypothesis, especially directional and non-directional.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so group 5, which one of you wants to answer the question from Sabrina?
Sir, may I?
Okay.
So as explained in the video, there are two types of hypothesis, the directional one and the non-directional one.
Okay.
To make it more simpler, probably because we have already taken the statistics and for business and economics in the first semester. So the directional is similar with the one-tailed hypothesis, while for the non-directional, it is similar with the two-tailed.
Okay.
So as being said, the directional has a clear direction of relationship within the variables, while the non-directional, there's no indication of the relationship.
Okay. can you give an example of directional and non-directional hypothesis?
For the directional, believe that if it took a topic, like adults will correctly recall more words than a children. So it's kind of compare.
Okay.
Well, for the non-directional, for the example, is like there will be a difference in how many numbers are correctly recalled by children and adults.
Okay. So in the first instance, there's already a direction in which the adults have higher memory retention or higher performance compared to children, while in the non-directional, the hypothesis only states that there is a difference, or there are differences, but there's no direction, there's no specific statement which group is higher than the other. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, another example, I'd like to add another example is for relational hypothesis. For example, X influences Y. Okay, so or job satisfaction increases performance. For example, that's increases performance. That's already a directional. So there's a positive relationship. But if it's only influences, job satisfaction influences performance without specific direction, it can either be increasing or decreasing performance. So that's non-directional. Okay, but I think
Okay.
with our example is a good example. Okay, is there any other question from the rest of from the other group? From the other group, I think. Let me check. So.
May I add?
Yes.
Okay. So the group mentioned earlier explained about things to consider in order to assess the quality of recent research, right? Like
yeah,
one that has so many points. So I assume that we have to cover all of the points in order to achieve a qualified research. My question is, what if one of the points are not being covered in the research? Will that reduce the quality of research or something? Thank
okay.
you.
So Devita asked about the quality of research based on the 4 points. Which 4 points was it? Perhaps the uh, the group 5 can also explain the 4 points, and then what happened if one of the points is not met by the researcher.
I'm going to answer. So for evaluating literature, I mean, you can check it out from either from the title, the abstract, the introduction, or the table of contents, and the first chapter of like a specific journal or like scientific literature. Like that's like basically like the basics in terms of finding whether the literature is viable or not. And then to assess the quality of research, recent research for that one, it doesn't necessarily to have to like cover all the points that I mentioned in the presentation, since perhaps there are things that you would like require more towards in terms of the research that you're trying to find. So for example, like there are several points in there. For example, like is the main research question or problem statement presented in clear or analytical ways is like more has more weightage compared to the other points. If that has more weightage, then probably those things which fits that category should be like what's it called, prioritized. If like some points are not that prioritized, I guess you can adjust it, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So and what characteristics or what, how do you decide when to modify the sections or the points?
Like for example, like the points that I given on the presentation again, perhaps before doing the research, probably you need to like list down the things that you would need to find during the research, so that when you're conducting the research, you don't really get lost or like stray from your path.
Yeah. Okay. Is that clear? Natasha.
Sir, I want to ask, so based on what Bagus have explained, so does it mean that before we actually do a research from a scientific literature, so we need to have a previous research first before a research?
Okay. So I think so perhaps the group 5 wants to answer. So is it required to do a research before doing a literature review?
Yes, because I'm just wondering because like what factors that we should take into account when choosing a literature, like for example, we need something that is up to date. So like when we know that we need an up to date information like that. So is it a research before a research?
Okay. Perhaps group 5 can answer.
May I answer again, sir?
Yes, yes, you may.
So to make a research question, like the end process is for us to actually give a solution. And by that time, you have to find at least a problem within the you're trying to solve. And in order to do that, you have to find like a surface level or at least some level of research before actually having a question or probably later on a solution. So that's what I'm yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think that's a good answer. What I'd like to add is that of course there are different types of literature review at different stage of research. The main one would be after after identifying or as part of the research question. So the initial lit review should be about identifying the phenomenon that you want to study. So the managerial problem and also the research question. Okay, those lit review can come from outside academic journals. So it can come from like newspaper articles. It can come from perhaps something you read from even from popular books, and also it's not limited to just journal article, but it can also include journal articles. So some research paper specifically identify the research gap up front. So they identify the research gap, and then they derive the research question from the research gap. Okay, but the main one should be after you've got the research question, then you select the theory. You develop the theoretical framework from the literature, okay, to answer the research question. So for formulating a research question, yes, you need a lit review, but you also need lit review after you've made the research question to identify the appropriate theoretical framework that you can use to answer the research question. So
there are stages, yes, sir.
Yeah, there are stages. And even at the end, even after you've collected the data, you've analyzed the data, you also need to do lit review to justify the findings and to connect your findings with the body of knowledge in the theory. So lit review occurs on all stages of research, but mainly after you've got the research question and before you do the data collection. So that's the main timing for the lit review.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bagus.
Okay. One more question.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Can I ask? I want to ask.
Okay. Fadli, you may ask.
Okay, so based on the group presentation, I'm assuming that there aren't any advantages and disadvantages of journals and thesis. But let's say that we are making journals or thesis, and we're making a mistake. What could happen to us the thesis maker, the journal maker, after the fact that our thesis is misleading?
Okay, very good question. I think I'll let group 5 to answer the question.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, sir, may I ask the question? Is it we're making a thesis or we're using a thesis for our literature review?
Okay. Okay. So I think one of the question about different the quality between the journal article and okay, for the questioner who asked the question. Who asked the question previously? I forgot.
Mr. Fadli.
Okay, Fadli. Okay. Perhaps you can repeat the question for group 5.
Okay, so based on your group presentation, I'm assuming that there aren't any advantages and disadvantages of the thesis and journals. But all I want to ask is what could happen to us, the thesis maker, if we somehow make a mistake on conducting research, and our thesis end up misleading? What will happen to us, or should we make thesis? Should we make the thesis again, or is there any some kind of hukuman?
Okay, I think that's good. Yeah. So is that clear for group 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No worries.
Sir, can I answer?
Yes.
So if you're doing a research about the academic journal, and then you're making your own work using those academic journal as the references, and for instance that you're making some mistakes, it can be categorized as the ethical issues that I previously mentioned in the video. It is a form of misrepresenting the work of other authors because you are using the work of other and then you're using it as a reference. Also, it can be also known as the content falsification. It took place when you were reaching a publication process, the publication of your work, and it somehow your work is false or untrue. This can actually result in a chaotic situation. For example, like a false news or false information that can be misleading.
Okay, so that's...
And for the penalty, I think it can be sued. Not really sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to add, so there are both intentional and unintentional mistakes, quote-unquote mistakes. So if you did an unintentional mistake in your research and it's already published, you can issue a correction or withdrawal. So either a withdrawal, so you withdraw your paper from the journal, or you issue a correction. You added what's the word? Erratum. So you admit that there are some mistake in your previous paper, and you publish the correct version or the corrected version of the paper. So that's if it's unintentional. If it's intentional and you get caught, that's and that's almost always. So in academia, because you have to publish and you have to publish and you have to present. Okay, if you do an intentional violation, okay, almost always you will be caught. If not now, it can be perhaps years in the future. Once you become a public figure, then someone goes through your student work and then found out that you plagiarized something or you've misrepresented something, and that's obviously not good for everyone. So yeah, and the punishment, okay, the punishment is almost always severe. So the minimum you can get your degree revoked. So you can get your degree revoked if the university decide that you have conducted an ethical violation during your final work, your thesis or dissertation, and all. So it's not. So it's something that you have to avoid. So that's why it's actually something that uh, that I'm going to cover after this. So the Q&A is for the group is over. So please give applause for group 5. Okay. Okay. Now I will move to the material. So I'd like to add something. Wait a second. Okay, I'd like to add something that that it's important to know. So this is okay. So in addition to the topic covered by group 5, there are some things that it's also important to know when you are doing a lit review and developing a theoretical framework. The first is to map the relationship of variable, because almost all research, either qualitative or quantitative, must either propose a relationship or test a hypothesis about the relationship between variable. So even qualitative research will propose something, will suggest that there are relationship, there are connection between variable that they study. So in this slide, there are 5 different different types of variable based on the relationship with each other. The most common one is the independent variable and the dependent variable. Okay, so that's the most common one. So independent variables are factors that the researcher hypothesize or propose influences another variable. So in this case, the independent variable influences the dependent variable and also influences the mediating variables. So in this case, okay, and the dependent variable is usually the variable that the research wants to explain. So for example, if I want to explain employee turnover, okay, so I want to know why newly hired public accountant quits before before 2 years. So 50% of junior public accountant resign before they got to 2 years of tenure. So I want to know why. So my dependent variable, the variable that I want to explain, is turnover, employee turnover, or employee turnover intention. And so the independent variable is the variable that I think contribute to the turnover of the new employees. for public accountants, my hypothesis probably is because of work overload. So I want to test whether work overload contribute to employee turnover in newly hired public accountants. So that's the work overload is the independent variable. Employee turnover or turnover intention is the dependent variable. Now the tricky variables. So there are two. There are mediating variables and moderating variables, and these are separate. So do not confuse between mediating and moderating. And I'd like to stress that students often confuse between mediating and moderating. So med and mod, two different things, only one letter difference. So what is mediating variable? It's a variable that connects between two variables. So it's like a sequential. So rather than a direct effect, so in this case, work overload directly influences the turnover intention. In this case, I want to know why or how work overload can increase turnover. So my hypothesis is perhaps because work overload created stress. So the stress makes people want to quit. So that's why I put work stress as the mediating variable. So work overload as the independent variable influences work stress, and then work stress makes people want to quit. That's the mediating variables. While the moderating variable is the variable that modify or moderate the influence of another variable. So in this case, job stress influences employee turnover intention. But I want to test if this relationship is moderated or modified by something else. Okay, for example, perhaps their personality. For example, for employee with high emotional stability, for example, the influence of job stress to employee turnover intention will be less. So my hypothesis will be the influence of job stress toward employee turnover intention will be lesser when will be lesser than will be lesser if the employee have a high emotional stability. But on the other hand, the effect of job stress toward the employee turnover intention will be higher if the employee has a low emotional stability measure. So that's the moderating variable. So it modifies. When the emotional stability is high, then the relationship will be weak. But when the emotional stability is low, then the effect will be strong. So that's moderating variable. And the fifth variable is the control variable. Okay, so control variable is a variable that you suspect might confound the model. Confound means it messes up with the estimation. So for example, I don't know if I've mentioned it because, okay, previously, for example, a psychological researcher found that the shoe sizes of children correlate with their IQ, okay? The shoe size correlate with their IQ. And this researcher tested these findings across lots of people, and it's consistent that shoe sizes, so the size of their feet correlates strongly with their IQ for children. But then another researcher refuted the finding by adding a control variable. So the second researcher added age as a control variable. So the age of the children are controlled. In this case, either statistically or procedurally. For example, and only analyzing children in the same age, only perhaps 6 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old separately, not not as a whole. And then they found out that once age is controlled, the relationship is no longer significant, which means that probably and most likely age influences both shoe size and IQ, because for children, before their growth maximize, their shoe size and their IQ increases with age. As the children gets older, their feet gets bigger and their IQ also increases up until a certain age, and then the growth stabilizes. Now, in that case, age should be and must be controlled, because if not, then it will be able to confuse or confound the estimation. And in this case, for example, for employee turnover intention, another example is perhaps marital status, gender, for example. So perhaps a single newly hired employees are more likely to quit than married employees, for example. So by controlling their marital status, you can get a stable or a clear relationship between the independent variable, the mediating variable, and the moderating variable. So that's different types of variables. And why this is important? Okay, these are the information that you need to find out when you're reading a paper. When you read a paper, always think, what's the IV? What's the DV? Is there any mediating or moderating variable? What's the control variable? That's what you want to get out of a paper. So you need to write down. When you are summarizing the content of a journal article, you need to know instinctively what's their IV, what's their DV, what's their mediating, what's their moderating, and so forth. Because that's what you want to cite. You want to build your own theoretical model based on what's in the literature. So, for example, if you want to study brand switching behavior, then you need to search journals that have brand switching behavior as their dependent variable, and then you go through those paper, what's in their model, what's their IV, what's their mediating variable, what's their moderating variable, what's their control variable. So when you make your own theoretical framework, okay, you cite the paper from the journal articles, and use them as the basis, as the foundation for your own theoretical model. Okay. Okay. Is there any question about this slide before I move on to the next slide? Okay. Please ask question if you are not clear, because most likely, and this is a hint, most likely this will come up in your exam. Most likely. No guarantee, but most likely. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
So a control variable is a variable that is consistent when conducting the research.
Okay. So control variable are probably background data. demography, for example, gender, age, social economic status, marital status, those kind of variable that potentially can mislead the analysis. Okay, for example, in the sample size, in the sample size, there's an imbalance between genders, male and female, for example, and then the findings shows so the finding only represent one side of the gender. For example, your respondents are mostly female. Okay, so the findings from that article, from the study, might be biased toward female. So if gender is not controlled, so you need to control the gender before you analyze the data, okay, to get a balance, a balance finding. That's perhaps an example of a control variable. Another control variable is, for example, if you want to study productivity of fisheries. For example, a fish processing factory, for example. But the productivity of fish processing plants are influenced by weather. So if it's rainy, if it's storm, okay, the fishermen cannot catch fish, and the production perhaps slowed down. So there is an influence from weather towards productivity. But weather is not your variable. Weather is not your independent variable. Your independent variable is, for example, job satisfaction, or effective machinery. So whether the operation side or the marketing or the human resources side influences productivity. But you want to exclude weather effect from the productivity. So you use weather, you use weather recording as control variable for your data. So you want to exclude any variation that is caused by differences in weather, and then you analyze the residual, so the differences in productivity that's not caused by weather. You want to explain that using your model, either a human resource model or an operation model. So that's another example of a control variable. Okay, is that
Thank you,
clear?
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other question about this slide before I move on to the next slide? Okay. The next slide. Okay. The next slide. Okay. I think one of you mentioned whether there are advantages between journal article versus unpublished research. I think that's not the case. The reality is that there are a hierarchy of literature. So not all literature are created equal. So one type of literature is higher in the hierarchy, in the preferences compared with other. Okay, the highest one, the highest, the most prioritized type of literature for research, for thesis and all, is journal article. So why journal article is top in priority? There are two reasons. One is because they are peer reviewed. So there's quite a strict quality control for journal article. So usually for a journal article to be published might require between 6 to 24 months. So just in the process of review and revise. So that's quite a long process, but that's important to ensure the quality and to weed out, to eliminate problematic papers. For example, a paper that's biased, a paper that's that's perhaps methodologically flawed. Those kind of paper usually are eliminated during the review process. The second reason is that journal article is state of the art. So basically, they're what's the latest, that they are the latest version of what is known about a topic. So compared with textbook are not mostly they're about crystallized knowledge. So everything in a textbook is something that's already crystallized. So probably there are changes. There are latest edition, for example, the 2019 edition, 2020 edition, but the main content of the textbook probably came from 1980 or 1990. So textbooks only minimally updated, while journal article, okay, they're expected to be the latest, the latest knowledge, the latest insight on a topic. So if you want to know what is current, read a journal article. If you want to know what is common knowledge for scholars, read the textbook. Okay. The second layer of hierarchy is conference proceeding. Why? Because they're also latest. They're also the most updated, the state of the art. However, journal article have lesser quality control. So it's easier to publish a conference proceeding than to publish a journal article. So they are usually commonly used as secondary references. Yes, you can cite conference proceeding, but most likely for your key paper, don't use conference proceeding. For your key paper, the main paper that you cite, that you focus, use journal article. The third one is book chapter on specific issues. So so it's different from textbook. Book chapter is usually a collection of writing by different author, but writing about a specific issues. So they have editors, but they are usually not peer reviewed. The fourth is textbook. It's crystallized. Okay, it's well known. It's already accepted. So nothing controversial. Nothing. But on the other hand, nothing new. And usually textbook are not peer reviewed. The fifth one is unpublished research, thesis and dissertation. This is actually the lowest tier for a scholarly article. So after this, it's no longer a scholar. So it's probably a popular literature, but for scholarly literature, unpublished research, either a thesis or dissertation, is considered the lowest type, the lowest tier. So they are acceptable as a reference, but should not be used for the main references. Why? Because of two reasons. Number one is because they are not peer reviewed. They are not peer reviewed. So yes, there are thesis examiner, but being examined for by, so the rigor, the level of rigor for journal article reviewer is perhaps a couple times stricter than a thesis examiner. So that's why it's probably easier to graduate than to write a journal article, to publish a journal article. Okay, the second reason is because usually there is a published version of that thesis. So if you cite the thesis, then you fail to cite the published version of that thesis. So that's why if you want to cite a thesis, I suggest you look for the journal article written by that student. Then so the title might be different, but the name should be the same. So look for the journal article instead of citing the unpublished research. The next one is media articles, print and online. And I'd like to stress, I'd like to highlight that this literature, the media article, should only be used for the introduction, for the background. But for the lit review, for the theoretical framework, do not use media article, because that's not considered a theory. Yes, it's considered a literature, but not part of the theory that you want to use as a framework. So if you want to cite something for your theoretical development, use journal articles up to unpublished research. That's the lowest tier. But for introduction, for highlighting or showing that there is a phenomenon, that's like showing the phenomenon, yes, you can cite media articles just for the introduction, just for the background. But for the theory, do not cite my media article. And the last two, there are different opinion about this. Some people allow blogs to be cited. Some people, some people only. Some people don't allow blogs, but most people do not allow Wikipedia article, Wikipedia pages as a citation. So do not cite Wikipedia. That's I think that's a big red flag. So if I'm a thesis examiner and the thesis I examine cited Wikipedia, that's a big red flag. So don't cite Wikipedia. Even Wikipedia itself stated that they are better off as a source of information to jumpstart the search of literature rather than as a citable reference. So they're not really citable. Why? Because both of these are not really citable because they can be changed. So imagine if you cite a Wikipedia entrance today, and tomorrow they change the content. So when you want to go back, you want to show that you have cited this from Wikipedia, that part is no longer there. So then the examiner will question, is this true? Are you telling the truth? And that's not a good thing. So that don't use Wikipedia as references. Yes, you can read them, you can use them as a starting point. Read the Wikipedia, check the references, check the sources, and use the sources. So go to the original source and use the source instead of using the Wikipedia. As for personal blog, okay, same thing, they can change. So if I have a blog, I can simply delete a page. I can change the content, so there's no limitation. So that's why do not cite blogs. But if you have to save a screenshot, okay, save to PDF. So at least if they change the content, you have something to show that this is the truth. I have really cited this statement from this blog. But of course, the quality, the level of citing blog is not really recommended for literature. Okay. Is there any question about this slide? Any question? If there's no question, I'll move on to the next slide, which is, I think, one of the, let me say, okay. Okay, the next slide is about predatory journal. I don't know. Okay, I don't think this content is part of. I think this is this. So this is what's the word? This is so this is not so this must be relative. Some supervisor does not believe that there is a predatory journal, but most understand that there are predatory journals. So basically, not all journal articles are created the same. So not all literature are the same. Subsequently, not all articles, not all journals are created the same. So I've mentioned that journals should have the highest level of quality control. But the reality is that even journals have different level of quality control. So, okay, some journal publish every submission, so with zero quality control, while other journals, the top tier journal, can be very competitive, can be very strict. Even perhaps only 5% of the total submission is are published. So if there are 100 submission, only 5 are accepted. The remaining 95 submission, the author might submit the paper elsewhere, perhaps a lower tier journal and so forth. Okay, so but a low tier journal, that's okay as long as they're not predatory. So for predatory journal, they don't have any quality control. Oh, okay, and this is okay. This next bit is quite relative. So basically, there's no universal references for journal quality. So there's no benchmark. There's no real standard for journal quality. Okay, but for evaluation purposes, usually we have two different. We have a lot of okay for international journals. Especially those with English language. Okay, we use Scopus index to evaluate the quality. There are 4 tier: Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So Q means quartile. So basically, the whole Scopus database, which consists of thousands of journals, are divided into 4. So Q4 means the lowest quarter of the journal article. Okay. I think this is like a rule of thumb. The rule of thumb here at FEB is to use Q1 to Q3, while Q4 are not okay, especially for key papers. But for additional references, for additional literature, yes, you can cite Q4, but not as the main paper, not as the key paper. But preferably cite Q1 to Q3. As for Indonesian journal, yes, you can cite Indonesian journal, even those not indexed in Scopus. Okay, we have even FEB. Our FEB has a couple of journal not indexed in Scopus but indexed in Sinta. So Sinta is local, national, Indonesian national indexation. So I don't know. It's an abbreviation, science or something. So basically, Sinta classifies Indonesian journal. So there are 6 classification. This is to replace the journal accreditation. So previously we have journal accreditation, national accreditation by Dikti, but now it's switched to Sinta. We have 6 level of Sinta. The good quality one is only Sinta 1 and Sinta 2. While Sinta 3 to 6 are not, usually they're low tier journal, very low tier journal, very low quality. So don't use them as key paper. So use only Sinta 1 to Sinta 2. Okay. Is there any question about this slide before I move on to the next slide? Okay, if there's no question, any question? Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, this is an important section, probably not part of, not originally not part of the topic, but it's important. Why? Because this is something that's every student needs to know, which is plagiarism, and that's one ethical problem, ethical issues that students have to avoid at all costs. So don't plagiarize. Okay, so by the definition, it's plagiarism is presenting the words, ideas, images, sounds, or the creative expression of others as your own. So it's like you're like stealing the attribution. You steal the ideas, the words, the creation of someone else. You claim it as yourself. So that's not not a good thing, obviously. So there are two types of plagiarism: intentional and unintentional. Like copying a friend's word, that's obviously intentional. Buying or borrowing papers, cut and paste text from electronic source without documenting. So that's intentional. Unintentional can be careless paraphrasing, poor documentation, and failure to use your own voice. Meaning, the meaning of failure of using your own voice is that you don't put your so you take the word of others and use it as if it's your own. It's as if it's you who said that, and without adding your personality inside the word. So because obviously everyone has their own writing style, and the expression different people have different ways of expressing their ideas. So the same idea can be expressed differently based on the style of communication. Okay, how to avoid plagiarism: quote and cite phrases, sentences, paragraph taken directly. So if you take something directly from another source, quote and cite. Quote means put a quote mark, and then write down the source. So for example, Sekaran 2010, for example. Statistics, charts, graph, and drawing taken directly from the original source, or even adapted, okay, needs to be cited. So for example, if you copy paste, if you copy paste a diagram from a journal article, cite the source. If you draw your own diagram based on the diagram in the journal article, cite the source. So that's why. So basically, you don't claim something even if you draw it yourself, but you drew it based on the diagram from another paper. So you have to use cite. You can say that it's adapted from this paper, that's fine. But if you copy paste without any changes, then you have to mention the source. The source of this diagram is this paper. Okay. Fadli, do you want to ask a question?
No, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you want to ask a question. Okay. I have, this is the one question. Do I have to cite everything? Everything? Yes. Except if it's common sense or common knowledge. Okay. So, For example, I think in this case, George Washington wore wooden dentures. That's common sense in the US, I think. But for example, if the Earth is a globe, that's common sense, I think. You don't have to cite, for example, Columbus and so forth. You don't have to cite it. But if you write down that the Earth is flat, if you're a flat earther, because that's not a common knowledge, you have to cite where do you refer, who do you refer when you say that the Earth is flat. I'm not a flat earther, by the way, but that's just the difference. If it's mentioned, the same information is mentioned in at least 3 different sources without attribution, then you don't have to cite it. So I have to clarify. So if the same information is present in 3 different sources without attribution, without citation, so they're not citing anyone, you don't have to cite it. But if they cite someone, then you have to cite the original source. Okay. But the fact that the Earth is not flat is common sense, common knowledge. So you don't have to cite someone. You don't have to cite me or a Magellan to write that the Earth is not flat. Okay. What's the big deal? Okay. So if I change a few words, I'm still okay, right? Wrong. Okay. So it's plagiarism because you're paraphrasing an original idea without mentioning the source. So if you let's say if you translate something, so it's no longer in the original language, you put your own voice when you translate the passage, but the idea doesn't come from your own idea. So it's not your own idea. You took the idea of someone else and then you translate their words. So you have to acknowledge the source of the idea. So not only the word, but also the idea. So you still have to cite the source, even though you have paraphrased the statement, because you took the idea from someone else. That's okay as long as you cite, as long as you attribute the idea to the original source. And that's a big deal, because if you fail to cite, if you fail to document the original source, then the person might create a problem. For example, if someone stole my idea in one of my papers and they wrote their own paper based on my paper without attributing my paper, I can email their university head asking them to investigate this researcher because they have infringed upon my intellectual property without citing my paper, my original papers. That's a big deal. Okay, we have 3 strategies to avoid plagiarism. Okay, first is quoting. This is direct quotation, quoting the exact word of an author, copied directly, word for word. Okay, and usually you put a quote at the beginning and at the end, and cite the sources. Okay, for example, this statement is written by Carol Rohrbach and Joyce Valenza. Okay, what year? It should be added, for example, 1965 or so forth. Paraphrasing means it's not simply a rearranging or rewording an original passage, but you have to understand what the author is saying. You have to understand the basic idea behind the sentence and write the ideas entirely in your own words. Do not misquote someone. So you misquote means that you misunderstood the statement and then you write it with your own language but with the different idea. So that happens. That's also not plagiarism, but that's also an ethical violation. So for example, you write down that Pak Imam said the earth is flat based on the proof YouTube videos 2020s, for example. That's misquote. That's a misattribution of quote. I never said that the earth is flat. My idea is to use the sentence to to give example of common knowledge, common sense, and not something that is not a common knowledge. So that's the opposite of paraphrasing. It's misquotation. So you're wrongly paraphrasing the idea of the original author. Okay. Don't cut and paste any sources. Don't use another student word. It's obvious. Don't just change a few paper. So that's don't just change a few words. So for example, you copied the paper and just change like 5 words. Okay. So with the current technology, it's easy, very easy to detect if you've done this because we have turned it in. We have authenticate. Those are technology that identify similarity with document on the internet. So you can easily get caught if you do this. Okay, I think that's okay. That's part 1. Okay, okay, Devita, I think you have a question.
Is it okay if I ask right away, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned 2 types of plagiarism, the intentional and unintentional one. And the unintentional includes the inability to voice out your own opinion, right? My question is, to what extent should we voice our opinions, or to what extent should we use others' ideas? Is it fine if we completely agree on others' opinions as long as it's decided? I just want to know your take on the ideal ratio between others' ideas without.
Okay, so basically, my take is in a paragraph. Do not just take one whole paragraph. So So you based one whole paragraph on one author's idea. In one paragraph, my take is at least you need to put two or three different authors, 2 or 3 sources. So because there are 2 or 3 sources, you have to sort of synergize. So that is must come from your own word, because the authors from these 3 sources, they might not know each other. They wrote independently, but by synthesizing the different sources, you create your own idea from their idea. So basically, this is just a rule of thumb, but at least 2 or 3 sources in a paragraph, if in the literature review. So that's my take. You can use one paragraph, one sources, but make sure that you don't like copy or take the whole paragraph from one source, but you need to perhaps at least half of the paragraph needs to be your own words, your own idea. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it really does. Thank you, sir.
Okay, no worries. Okay, for the next session, I will ask for the group. So we have for today we have group 8, group 2, and group 8. So Novalia, Shantira, Sabrina, and Group 8, Arfa, Gerald, and Daryl to present their progress, the literature they have found for each group, approximately 10 minutes. So we have 20 minutes of presentation, and then I will give roughly 10 minutes of feedback. And after that, we will have a breakout session in which you can discuss your group proposal. Okay, I think for the first group, I will ask Group 8. Group 8, Arfa, Gerald. Okay, do you want to share something, or you just present verbally?
Does it have to be presentation, sir? Because last night I talked with the.
Okay, if you don't have a presentation, do you have a paper that you want to show?
We do have the presentation, sir.
Okay, that's good. If you have the presentation, please present. Share your screen and present it for 10 minutes. So make it short, just 10 minutes, and then I will have a feedback, and also if I will ask, I will accept one question from the floor at most, and then we move on to the second presentation.
This is the topic that went to Racer, and these are the three articles that we found with me, Regi, and Daryl. So first, according to the articles, the millennials' perception on mobile payment service in Malaysia, it is considered as a Q tracer, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And we also work within the other two articles as the supplement. So these are the articles is written by the Press Media Computer Science. This one is the analysis pengaruh is from Indonesia. And the other one is the same Prosedia. And these are the methodology. Three of them are quantitative, sir, if I'm not mistaken.
What's the variable? What's the variable? The independent variable, the dependent variable?
Which one, sir? Which?
All three, because you want to do lit review, right? So
yes, sir.
Other than the methodology, before the methodology, actually, you need to state what is the dependent variable and the independent variable. So, for example, the millennial perception on mobile payment service. This is, I presume, this is the dependent variable, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what factors in the paper influences?
There are reputation, familiarity, satisfaction, and also the perceived of ease of use.
Okay, so those are the independent variable. It should be compared. So for example, so the dependent variable should be the same. So what's okay, so for example, if your research question is why do people adopt an online payment or a mobile payment service, then the dependent variable for the paper should be adoption. So mobile payment service adoption, and then the independent variable can be varied. So perhaps paper 1 uses ease of use and perceived usefulness. Paper 2 uses risk and trust. Okay, that's the probably the independent variable for paper 2. Trust and cognitive perspective for paper 3. That's part of the lit review. So identifying the independent variable and the dependent variable for the paper. Is there a mediating or moderating variable?
The moderating variable, perhaps the age, sir.
Okay.
So we tend to ask the question to those who are in the young age.
Okay.
Since there is also some conclusion here that is written by the journals.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, you may continue. Oh, this is the latent variable.
And these are the so since the some of the variables that is written by the main reference is also is being conducted also by the supplements here, and in the supplement articles there are questions.
Okay. My question: did
Yes.
Did you get this from Gin et al. Directly or through the 3 paper you mentioned upfront?
From the 3 papers, sir.
Okay.
The questions.
Then the way you cite it should be Gin et al. 2003 in which paper?
It was on the analysis pengaruh trust.
Okay, so in that paper. So what's the author? Can you go?
The author Anjar Priyono, sir.
Priyono 2017. So that's the way you cite something. If you don't, if you didn't go to the original article, the Gin et al. 2003, then you have to state that you get this from Priyono 2017. So Gin et al. 2003 in Priyono 2017. But even that is actually frowned if too many of it, if it's peppered in your paper. So if a lot of in your paper, it shows that it's preferable for you to go directly. So if you know that Priyono cited Gin et al., try to find the original Gin et al. Article and then cite the original one. But that's fine. So this is learning process. So for all of you, for not just group 8, for the other group, for all group, if you got references in your selected paper, if possible, go find that citation. So go to the original source if possible, okay, and then you can cite them directly instead of citing them through the first paper. Okay, you can move on.
Okay, sir. So we'll work on the citation, and this is also another one, sir. The other.
Okay.
So I believe these are all the indicators and questions, and I think that's all that we can talk about after that.
Okay, that's good. So okay, so what's good is that you have already identified the measures. Okay, the questionnaire, the measures for the paper. That's good. Okay. 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 So, but I think that in this case, you have to be clear on which, for example, which journal use which measures, because sometimes one variable may have different measures. Okay, and perhaps there are a bit of context behind that. So perhaps usefulness for product versus usefulness for services might have different wording. Okay, perhaps one journal use usefulness in the context of a product, while the other journal use perceived usefulness for services, and it's better for you to use the usefulness from the services rather than the one from the product. Okay, is that clear? Okay. One other thing. Okay. Is that clear? Do you have question?
So perhaps maybe what we'll do is on check what the original questions written by the journal. Okay, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing about your articles, 2 of them are from a Procedia, right? Procedia of computer science. Okay. Procedia means that it's not actually a journal article, it's actually a proceeding. So at procedia means that it's a conference proceeding. So it's considered lower tier, but as long as it's Scopus index with at least Q3, that is fine. So check the Scopus index, and for the Indonesian journal, check the Sinta. If the Sinta index is Sinta 2 or higher, Sinta 1 or Sinta 2, you can use them. If the Scopus, if the international journal, the Procedia has a Scopus index of Q3 or higher, that's okay. But if the sources is from Q4 or Sinta 3 and below, then you have to change the journal article. So I strongly suggest to stick with Q1 to Q3 for Scopus and Sinta 1 and Sinta 2 for Sinta. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
We'll check as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. So for group 2, I think Novalia, Santira, and Sabrina.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, no worries. Do you have something to present, or if not, you can simply share the article if you like.
yes, I will share the screen, sir.
Okay, you may share the screen.
Can you see it, sir?
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So good afternoon, sir. We're from Group 2 and we'll be sharing our progress report for the final project. After digging some research and discussion, we came up with the research topic, the influence of using BTS as a brand ambassador towards the brand awareness of Tokopedia.
Okay.
And our research topic is categorized in the scope of marketing. Wait a minute, sir. I couldn't.
I think it's already.
Is it changing?
No, it's.
Wait a minute.
Wait a second. Okay. I think you need to reshare the screen.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Are you muted? I think you need to unmute yourself first.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay. Just like any other research, we also have our own purpose to investigate this topic. Firstly, we know that the trend of the Korean wave has become an influential global phenomenon, where it's impacting the behavioral aspects of people throughout the world. And because Tokopedia and BTS are both big brands, where Tokopedia is one of the biggest e-commerce in Indonesia, and BTS is known internationally, and it has been very popular in Indonesia. And that's why we were interested to know the influence of BTS as a brand ambassador, whether they actually impacted the e-commerce industry in Indonesia. And we would like to also analyze if Tokopedia is taking the right marketing to partnering with BTS, because we know they would invest in much advertising expenditure. Next slide. And for the following slides, we will show our articles, but unfortunately, we still haven't found the main reference yet, but we already consulted with our tutor, Kak Arya, and he said that we can use this as the reference. Next slide.
Okay, so for the first journal, we found it from a journal called Sumeda Journal of Management, and the title is A Study on Impact of Celebrity Endorsers Towards the Buying Behavior of Soft Drinks Among Consumers, a study with special reference to Chennai City. So this is a bit similar to our topic, in which they are evaluating the impact of celebrity endorsements in soft drink advertisements around consumption of soft drinks in a specific city. And these are the author names. And for the methodology, they use data collection through a survey in a period of 5 months and analyzed it using SPSS, one sample t-test. The total sample size of the respondents was 200 consumers of soft drinks. And for the variables, I listed here out of the 4 hypotheses that they have. The first one is from respondents' opinion, if brand ambassadors influence them to consume soft drinks. So the way that they measured it is in the survey, they have like opinion from neutral, high, less, and so on. And for the second one, opinion again, if they are detracting someone from buying celebrity indoor soft drinks. The third one is opinion that they're able to recall brand ambassadors' advertisements. And the fourth one is opinion towards significance of brand ambassador. And the conclusion of this research is that firstly, the favorite brand ambassador are influencing consumers to consume soft drinks significantly at 1% level. Secondly, consumers are not distracting someone from buying celebrity indoor soft drinks. Thirdly, consumers are easily recalling brand ambassadors' advertisement. And fourth is that brand ambassadors are significant for soft drink advertisement in Chennai. So I think all of the hypotheses are proven from this research.
Okay, one question. Are you sure that they're using a one sample t-test? Is it specifically mentioned in the paper?
Yes, actually, from what I read in the paper, it is a one sample t-test.
Okay, that's fine then.
And for the second journal, it comes from the Journal of Marketing Management and Consumer Behavior, Volume 2, Issue 3 in 2018. And for the title article is Evaluating the Role of Brand Ambassadors in Social Media. And here are the names of the author. There are 3. And for the methodology, they use data collection through questionnaire, and the statistical population of the research was about 50,000 subjects who followed the Instagram page of Novin Charm Company. And for the 381 subjects were selected as samples through Morgan table. And the collected data were analyzed using the SPSS, and the correlation was done through the SAM. And for the variables, so they have 6 hypotheses, and and here we can see for the dependent and independent variable. For the dependent variable, there are 3. The first one is the electronic word of mouth advertising, which is in the first, third, and fifth hypothesis. And the second one is brand image in Instagram, which is in the hypothesis number 2, and the brand awareness in Instagram in hypothesis 4 and 6. And for the independent variable, which are brand ambassadors in the hypothesis 1, 2, and 4, then the brand image in the hypothesis 3 and 6, and the brand awareness in hypothesis 5. And for the conclusion, so brand ambassadors have a significant effect on the customer's attitude by creating a desirable brand image, and also concluded that with the arrival of brand ambassadors in social networks, the impact of social networking on brand awareness increases, which is confirmed by the second and fourth hypothesis. And therefore, the connection to managers of electronic communication channels and virtual spaces affects recommendation of brand ambassadors to customers, because the major volume of electronic word of mouth advertising occurs there. So sending promotional messages on social networks is very helpful in this regard. I think that's all for the journal number 2.
Next is the journal tree. In here, we choose the conference journal, so we don't have the title of the journal. So the title of the article is the effect of brand ambassador, brand image, and brand awareness on the purchase decision of Pantene shampoo, specifically in Surabaya, Indonesia. The conference article itself is written by Luhgede Permata, Natasha Edianto, and Hotlan Siagian. The methodology used for this article is they use non-probability sampling with purposive sampling. So purposive sampling itself is a data collection technique with particular consideration. So they're collecting the data using the questionnaire that will be shared to people. And after that, after they're collecting the data from the questionnaire, the research will be analyzed using PLS or partial least square. There are two variables in this article. The first one is dependent variable and independent variable. For the dependent variable itself, we want to know the consumer purchasing decision. And for the independent variable, we want to know the brand ambassador, brand awareness, and brand image, and how these three independent variables affect the consumer purchasing decision. So the result from this article is that brand ambassador has a significant effect on brand awareness and purchasing decision. For example, in Pantene, they choose Ralisha, who have a good reputation, and by inviting her to be the brand ambassador, it can increase the purchasing decision of the consumer. The second is the choosing of a suitable brand ambassador can improve brand image in the consumer mind and create positive perspective. So because as I said before, that Ralisha has a good image in the consumer, it also indirectly create brand image in the consumer mind and also positive perspective. And the last conclusion is that Pantene has high brand awareness, as it is brand that consumers mostly choose because Pantene is the right shampoo to fulfill their hair care needs. It is happened due to the right choosing of brand ambassador. So that is for the journal 3. We're going to move to journal 4.
And for the last one, this is also the conference proceeding with the title, The Influence of Brand Ambassador on Brand Image and Consumer Purchasing Decision, a case of Tulejo, Indonesia. And there are the two authors. And because this is a quantitative research, so they collect the data by giving questionnaires to 139 respondents. And there are the variables from the hypothesis divided into two. The dependent variable is the brand image and consumer purchasing decision, whereas the independent variable is the brand ambassador. And from the conference proceeding, they conclude that the brand ambassador positively influenced the company's brand image and the consumer purchasing decision. So the marketers need to combine the good image of brand ambassador and brand image of the company as their marketing strategy to enter and sustain in the market. That's it from us, sir.
Okay, thank you. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to add. Okay, so for your lit review, I think for if you're using conference proceeding, okay, even though there's no journal name, but it's at least you need to state it as proceeding of which conference, because there are lots of different conferences. Okay, but so you need to state the name of the conference, the proceeding for which conference, and also the year. Okay, so because in lit review we want to know different. There's probably different years. For example, if it's 2017, 2018, 2019. Okay, so we want to know the precedence of the literature. So obviously the latest article is usually are more relevant than the older one. For example, if there's a paper published in 2020, probably they already acknowledge the COVID situation, for example. So probably with the current pandemic situation, because business problem also must adapt. So there are consumer and employee behavior change because of the pandemic. So probably the older findings, the theory from the older papers might no longer be valid for in the current situation. So that's why when you're doing a lit review, always include the year of the paper. So the journal name, the journal title, the journal author, the year of the publication. That's usually the common fields in the summary. Okay, and also I asked question about the one sample t test, because it strikes me as odd, because one sample t test is usually not does not test for a relationship. So it's usually test differences. Is there any difference between the sample with a certain value? Okay, so one example, if I want to know if the attitude of my respondent toward the brand is greater than 5 or is lesser than 3, for example, that testing that hypothesis can use one sample data. So that's why I was a bit shocked. But other than that, I think you need to check the journal. Can you go to journal 1 again? Journal 1 again, please. Okay, so the title is Sumeda Journal of Management. So that's not the Journal of Management. Obviously, that's different. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the is this Scopus Index?
I'm not sure, sir. Let me check
Okay.
again.
If not, then I think I'm a bit worried that this might not be a good journal for your references, because it might be not indexed, and if it's not indexed, I think the other 3 journal should suffice. So you can easily delete this the first journal from your literature, because I'm a bit worried, at least because the correlation between the what's the word, the fit, the match between the method and the hypothesis, I think is not really a good match. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, so it's better to exclude this one.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I think that is all for the group presentation. Thank you very much. So I've mentioned that journal article is the top preference in lit review. Next is conference proceeding, and then book chapters. So you can use conference proceeding, but it's better for you to use a journal article. And for the journal article, you have to be careful not to use predatory journals, not to cite article published in the predatory journals, because they're so it's like a mixed bag of nuts. There are good ones, but mostly the journal article published in a predatory journal are probably not as good. So I think you have to be careful on which paper to cite, and I think it's better to use only Scopus index or Sinta index journal and only at a certain level of index. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to okay. So this is the breakout session. So I will give you 30 minutes to discuss in your group and note down the result. So select one member to note down the discussion. Okay. Decide on the group name and the group leader. I've mentioned last week that you should choose a name that reflects as if you are a consultant from a research firm, a business research firm, and select one group leader. So who's going to be your group leader? And then decide on the topic. So I think group 2 and group 8 already have a topic. But if you for the rest of the group, you also have to choose a topic. If you have not, then you need to start choosing the topic, at least whether it's marketing, human resources, operation, finance, and then also identify the specific topic within the field. For example, for marketing, I think one group is about brand endorser, another group is about adoption of payment, mobile payment system. That's fine. So identify the topic and also the managerial problem and research question. Okay, if possible. So the main one is the first two, but also try to identify managerial problem and research question. This is already covered last week. Okay, and if possible, identify potential key paper for the proposal. Hopefully we can cover this in 30 minutes. If not the first three, at least perhaps the first two. Okay. Now I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to manage the breakout room. I have 8 groups, right? 8 groups. I will create room. Okay. For I'll leave group 4. I'll leave group 4, Fadli dan and Muhammad Izas. Okay. For group 8 is Arfa, Gerald, and Daryl. Arfa. Okay, Raigi Arfa. Okay. Okay. For group 7, Zafira, Theodore, and Lestasia. I think Lestasia. Theodore, are you there? Okay, I'll skip to group 6. Group 6, Devita, Fadila, Sabrina Salsabila, and Sinta. Okay. Group breakout room. That's 6. 5 is Kim Sebin, Bagus, and Winarif. Okay. Breakout room 3 is Ilham, Muhammad, Rafid, okay, and Farid. Okay. Breakout room 2 is Novalia, Shantira and Sabrina. With autumn 1. Okay. Okay, everyone's already allocated. I'm opening the room. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
I think my name is not on that list in group
Okay.
2. Can you add me to?
Okay. What's your name?
Alisa.
Alisa. Okay. You're not in group 1.
I'm in
Okay.
group 2.
Okay. I'll move you to group 2. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Group 1 is Emeraldo. Sharin. Where's Sharin? Okay. Okay. Anyone not classified yet? Please join the breakout session. Fadli, Farid, and Sevin.
Download lagi.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello,
hi,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So only 2 of you in this group?
Yes.
Yes, one of us is absent.
Okay, that's fine. You can discuss this also outside the group, outside the class. At least hopefully today you can get to start. Have you decided on a topic yet?
Yes, we have,
yeah.
but we're still discussing on the articles because our tutor says that the one we chose previously were not feasible.
I see. So what's your topic?
Our topic is the effectiveness of online customer service towards customer satisfaction in retail.
I see. So customer satisfaction.
Customer satisfaction. We mainly talk about that, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So but your focus is your independent variable, right? So the online customer service, is that right?
Yes, online customer service.
Okay. So if your focus is on online customer service, you might also search broader for other variable other than customer satisfaction. Obviously, that's probably also being influenced by the customer service. It can be the other way. For example, like service recovery. You know, like for example, if the customer experience something unpleasant, and then because of the service recovery, because of the for example, a good handling of the case, they can actually be more satisfied than before they receive the. But that's one suggestion. You can search broader other than customer satisfaction. So if you cannot find a journal specifically connecting between electronic customer service and customer satisfaction, you might think of looking other than customer satisfaction.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. But I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Do we have to include also about the managerial problem and research question on our analysis?
Yes. So not specifically, but at least in the introduction, you have to explain what's the background of your research question. That's where the managerial problem comes in. So, for example, the problem might be how to handle customer complaints. Okay, there are that's why perhaps I think there's like a chat bot. You can explain about the existence of technology that enables online customer services. That's the managerial context of the problem, and then you can go to the research question is whether perhaps the online customer service actually increase or actually influence satisfaction or purchase intention or something else.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move to a different room.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You might continue discussing.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello,
Okay.
sir.
So, have your group decided on a topic?
We already have the topic.
Okay,
sir.
that's good. What's the topic?
The influence of
as the brand ambassador towards the brand awareness of.
So, have you discussed your topic?
We already have our topic, sir.
Okay, that's good.
And we thought it's too general, and then we asked our teaching assistant about the topic.
Okay.
And then he said that if the topic is already good for you, you don't have to change the topic.
Okay.
And then I think we have something to ask.
Sure.
Sure. So we already found our main reference.
Okay. You want to share screen your reference?
Share screen, Fer?
Okay. So this is our main reference, sir.
Okay, it's still loading.
From Science Direct.
Okay. Okay. But it's procedia, which means this is a proceeding. Okay. Check the procedia social behavioral science, which means this is a proceeding of a global conference. But that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. The use of personal mobile devices at the workplace. I see. So you're thinking of HR as your topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Personal internet use. Okay. So what's the dependent variable?
For that journal.
For your, I think your topic. What do you think is the dependent variable?
I think the misuse of
personal. Okay.
Personal internet usage in the
Okay.
workplace, basically.
Okay, I see. That's fine. That's good. And okay, in this journal, what's the independent variable?
The employee, sir.
No, the employee, yes, but specifically, what aspect of the employee contribute or explain the misuse of internet?
We were thinking about the productivity, but
okay.
Is it okay, sir?
Okay, productivity is the dependent variable, something that you want to explain. But what do you think explain the productivity or the misuse of internet? For example, culture, for example, or personality, or addiction. For example, addicted to
yes, yes, sir.
social
That's
media addiction.
the one. Addiction.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think the lack of supervisor from the
Yeah, yeah. Those are the independent variable that explain the misuse of internet in the workplace. So that's
and the
so,
lack
but you
of
have to
supervision
find
from
it
the HR.
from the literature. So
Yes.
okay, so you find different variable that in the literature was used in previous study to explain why people misuse internet in the workplace, and then you can hypothesize from the references.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
But is it okay, sir? I mean, we take it from Presidia as our main resource.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm hoping that you use other references other than this. Okay. This can be a backup or a supporting reference, but for the main reference, I think you should find a real journal article instead of a procedure.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question.
Yes.
Let's say that we already found all three of our main and supplementary sources,
Yeah.
but what if we can we use another external sources from apart from these three
Yes.
sources?
Yes, you can.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So that's fine. Okay. So the three key paper is just a rule of thumb. So it's better for you to identify at least three paper that you think is key. It's essential to your research. But if you find five, that's fine. You can.
So we can get as many as paper as we can.
Yes, yes, but not too many, because if it's too many, your model will be quite big and ungainly. So that's not a good thing. So, and I think 3 to 5 is ideal. 3 to 5 key papers, but you can have as many additional references just to support the hypothesis as you like. But for the key papers, I think 3 to 5 is the ideal number.
Actually, we still have several paper that we think good enough for being a key sources, but the ASDOS haven't really contact us yet. So
can you share it with me so I can check?
Lip, tolong Lip.
Oh yeah. Wait.
Sama itu gue.
A minute, sir.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. This is the article, sir.
Okay, I think much better, much better.
But the teaching assistant point us two main problems.
Okay.
Sorry. The first problem is there are variable mediasi H5, H6, and H7, and he said it's kind of difficult. Yeah.
Okay, if it's mediation, you need to use SAM. Okay, so it's not difficult actually, but yes, you need to find probably more respondent.
That's his second point. About the respondent, because we need to find.
Yeah, but you can you scroll to the hypothesis, to the model?
Wait. Research method. Discussion.
Okay. Go back. I think. Okay, you can focus on an aspect. For example, you can what's AS and what's EP?
Sorry, sir.
So okay, what is AS and what is EP? So this is okay, WA, WELP, WAO. That's fine.
This one, yeah.
And what's this one? So what's the mediating variable?
Okay. We haven't really.
Employee what? Employee satisfaction? Employee.
Let me search that.
Employee. Employee satisfaction, I think. Productivity and
And
satisfaction.
maybe EP is employee productivity.
Okay, you can stop at employee satisfaction.
Okay,
You
so
don't.
EP and is
Yeah, so you don't need to go to productivity. You can just stop at employee satisfaction, and that's fine.
okay.
You don't need SEM. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
I have to go to another breakout room. Someone is asking
Okay.
for help.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for your advice, sir.
No worries. Hello.
Yeah. Hello,
Hi, sir.
Hello. Want
Sorry.
to ask question or ask help?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you have any what do you want me to help?
So we were kind of confused with the
Okay.
research question.
Okay.
Yeah, so our topic is viral marketing towards brand equity.
Okay. Brand equity is your dependent variable.
Yes.
Yes.
And then our management problem is viral marketing an effective tool to create brand equity?
Okay.
And then we're still confused for the research question.
Okay. So actually, that statement is actually a research question.
For
But
the management problem.
yeah, for the management problem is actually how to develop brand equity with the existing technology, with the current technology.
Oh.
Okay, so the management problem is more general, and then it gets specific. So once you've mentioned viral marketing as a tool to increase, if so, whether viral marketing can increase brand equity, that's already a research question. So, but the management, there's something underlying the research question. So go back and identify the what makes you ask the research question.
So like for example, for the management problem is wait. Apa ya? Is viral marketing an effective tool to create brand equity?
So our background is actually inspired by the recent phenomenon in
Yeah.
the Odading Mang
Yeah,
Oda.
I know.
So it's the video actually is one kind of viral marketing,
Okay.
right? So we were questioning whether that viral marketing is an important tool for someone to
Okay.
acknowledge the brand, to
Okay.
connect it with the specific
like
product, like the
Yeah.
Odading so the Odading is connected with the
Yeah.
taste that feels like an Iron Man.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. A good. So the problem might be how to uh, take advantage of the viral apps, the viral, what's the word, the social media platform, the TikTok and so forth, to increase or improve the brand equity. I think that's the management problem. But specifically, the research question is so the viral marketing needs to be defined. What's specific about viral marketing? What variable do you think is influenced by the virality? Is there any measure of virality, marketing virality, for example, or
engagement?
Engagement, okay. But
Because
I think rather than engagement, a lot of the interaction is actually with low engagement. It's more like fear of missing out, or it's like something of curiosity. So it's like it's probably it's not terribly high on customer engagement, but it attracts audience, right? So a lot of people probably like and click the video, and a lot of people tried the product. But does it really build equity? Does it really actually build engagement? That's a question. That's a valid research
That's what
question.
we're trying to do. Whether it is whether the use of viral marketing is really that effective.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it if it's only sales, short-term sales, it's only like and share, and that's a short-term indicator. Doesn't really explain about whether there's actually a brand equity being built other than the personal brand of the person. Okay, it's a completely different thing. The brand of the product and the brand of the person. If you want to analyze like social media influencer as a brand, that's okay. That's also okay, but that's a different approach than analyzing the product as a brand. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. So for the management problem is more broad, while
Yeah, yeah,
special is more specific. Yes, sir.
yeah. That's right. Okay, I have to move to a different room. Someone is asking.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
no worries. Okay, hello. You asked for my help.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're-
So
we're
what do you
the-
want? What do you want to ask?
We want to make sure that is it faster?
Okay, your voice was breaking up. So can you repeat the question?
I think what Yusha mean is that we want to ask regarding the research question
Okay.
for our presentation.
Okay.
Is it like the detailed version of our topic, or?
Okay. So your topic is probably about the managerial problem. What? So that's the broad statement. But you have to be more specific with the research question. Which variables do you think plays the role? Okay, in the, for example, what's your dependent and independent variable?
Our independent variable is the brand ambassador.
Okay, so
And
selection my question is specifically what attribute of the brand ambassador do you think influences the dependent variable? For example, familiarity, attractiveness, perhaps fit with personal, with authenticity. Those are the attribute of the brand endorser. So so the managerial problem might be how do we choose the right brand endorser for to promote our brand. That's the managerial problem, right? So, but the research question is that does attractiveness influence attitude toward the brand? For example, so does familiarity, does fit, for example, fitness between the product and the endorser. Okay, some product are endorsed by perhaps an unrelated brand ambassador, for example. So that's why the fitness between the person, the brand, and the endorser might also be evaluated, whether it affects the perception of the consumer. So that's
some of their their character, what's character affect the brand awareness?
Yeah. So which attribute, which aspect of the brand endorser do you think is significant, important in determining whether the brand endorser successfully improve the image of the brand? Because brand endorser, one of the purpose is to represent the brand and also give that perhaps added association, positive association between the brands. So for example, if you use a brand ambassador that's known to be smart, then you add as if your brand is also smart. So if you use perhaps an older ambassador, perhaps you want to impart of association like wisdom, calmness, and so forth. So different brand ambassador represent different association, and you want to test which association do you think works best to promote your brand. So that's specific research question, but you have to be specific in the attribute, attractiveness, or perhaps intelligence or sportiveness. So for athlete, I think for why you sports brand willing to pay a lot of money for athlete to endorse their product, because there's a big fit between their product and the association of the brand ambassador. Okay, that's
so how many research questions that we have
okay.
to...
Don't put too many. I think 3 to 5 research question is best. Okay, 3 to 5. 3 is enough. If you have only 3 research question, I'm fine with that. But no more than 5. More than 5, then you will get difficulties in answering the question. With more question, you need more data to answer the question. So I think 3 to 5 research questions is, I think that's suitable.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I think I'll move on to a different breakout room.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Okay. Do you have any question that you'd like to ask? Have you decided on your topic?
Yes, sir. Regarding the group name, sir, we don't have our group names yet because we don't know the requirements. Ada ketentuannya nggak, sir?
No requirement, but you want it to sell. So you want your name to represent your group. Make it so. For example, if you are your research topics on marketing, I think it's good to reflect that on your group name. But take it lightly. It's a life decision. But I will refer to your group with your name. So that's also important. Okay. But do you already have a group leader?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. And what's your topic?
We're going with marketing, sir. So we want to look for not specifically marketing, but I think it can be put that way. We will do research about factors that affecting customer loyalty towards Apple products, sir.
Okay, customer loyalty, that's marketing.
Yeah.
The product is Apple. iPhone specifically or general Apple brand?
Yeah, we thought about iPhone, but
okay.
Discussions, we think that the products in general is fine, right?
Okay, that's fine. Do you have any independent variable that you've proposed, for example, from the literature?
Independent variables as in the factors or
like brand, like what's the word? Perhaps price sensitivity or luxury. For example, Apple is known for their high price, perhaps status symbol and so forth. So perhaps you can look for references from studies on luxury goods like expensive watches, expensive bags. Results from those paper might be able to be transferred to your case. What makes people want to spend upwards to 20 million for a smartphone? So that's those questions that you like to ask.
We tend to go with the quality and the features.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The quality and the feature, that's good. So that's the rational part. But don't forget that a lot of people spend money not only because of the rational, not because of the utilitarian criteria, but also sometimes for the emotional or for the non-rational aspect, like status, like certain association, like, and so forth. So be balanced. Not understand that sometimes people spend money not only because of the rational factors that you've mentioned, like function and so forth. Okay.
All right, sir.
Okay. Do you have other question? Okay. If not, okay, you may discuss again. I'll go back to the main room. I think we will close the session in I think in roughly 5 more minutes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. Okay. Hopefully you've discussed the points that I requested, the group name, the group leader, the topic, and so forth. Okay, please write down the result of those points from the discussion and send it to the WhatsApp group. Okay. Other than that, it's tentative, so you can still change the research question and the managerial problem, but hopefully the topic should remain the same. Okay. I think it's already 1:30 p.m. Do you have any final question? Is there anyone who want to ask any final question before I close the session? Okay, Lestasia?
No, sir, no question.
Okay, no question. Thank you. Then I will close the session. I will post the recording in YouTube as usual, and you can rewatch the session on YouTube. For next week, we will have group 4 to present the topic on research design, and group 1 and 6 will present their progress report in terms of proposed methods. Or so group, I think group 1 and group 6 needs to finalize their research question quickly, identify the key papers, okay, and then start to think about the methods. There are 2 types of methods: the data analysis, data collection, whether a survey or experiment. But I strongly suggest you to select survey, because for experiment it might not be sufficient. You might not have sufficient time to prepare for an experiment. As for the data analysis, okay, it's tentative, so don't worry if you didn't get it right. I will give the suggestion for you and for the rest of the group on the research design. So hopefully next week all of you already have like a rough idea on the research method that you want to use for your proposal. Okay. If there's any other question, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group, or you can ask the assistant Kak Arya. Okay. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. See you next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.